Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
TGIF Chicago, friends, welcome to your weekend and welcome to the passionate voice of the Chicago sports fan. This is Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Friends, we are T-minus 12 days until Christmas and T-minus 4 days until Santa, 4 games, I'm sorry, until Santa brings us a new head coach for the Chicago Bears, who we all know too well need new on-field leadership like Aaron Rodgers needs a professional intervention and like the Grinch needs a makeover. But does that leadership change extend to the Bears front office, friends? That's what we'll be talking about tonight. Bears general manager Ryan Poles has been under heavier fire than John McClain this week as his team's losing streak reaches 7 games due to Poles' hand-stamped and hand-picked roster. But his Chicago soldiers and boss stand with him for now. Friends, welcome to the Madhouse. I am your boy from Iowa, Cleet Soup Campbell, along with a star-studded panel of the biggest stars in sports podcasting. We'll kick it off with Chris Light Dreams Brown. He's in the house from sunny San Diego, smartest man in the room here tonight. Then we've got the coolest cat in all of the New York City, New Jersey Metro. That is Jamari Riddick. And then we've got the man who, I tell you what, Gilbert, country star Bradley Gilbert wishes he had muscles like Daniel Blake. And there he is, the great American DJ, the program director and the afternoon host for the Knoxville Wolf. Matt Cooper is also in the house tonight. Guys, how we doing, fellas?
Doing great.
Good.
Ready to get
great
rolling.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you so
doing
much.
good. I'm doing good. How everybody doing?
Yeah, doing great, guys. I can't wait for you to hear what Chris has to say on this very important topic tonight that is all about the future of the Chicago Bears. Friends, we are brought to you in part tonight by our good friends at River Street Tavern in East Dundee, where you can get the Bears and Vikings in thrilling high-definition television Monday night and enjoy $1 off draft beer and get your name in a Bear-rutiful Christmas raffle that will get you an autographed framed photo of Bears legends and stars like Kevin Butler, Dan Hampton, DJ Moore, and Lance Briggs. All right, fellas, let's get right to it. Chris, it is safe to say that a good percentage of Bears Nation has lost faith in Ryan Poles, who's had more misses than hits during his third year running the Bears roster war room. But let's start off with the money question, Chris. How much blame does he deserve for the Bears' nosedive into the hard, cold playoff-less cement this season? Is he the reason the team is missing the playoffs because he stood by and over his head Matt Uberlus for too long?
I believe so. Just not as much as everyone thinks. I believe he made a lot of roster moves that improved that defense tremendously, especially last year with the trade for Montez Sweat. Some of his draft picks have been hitting, especially the 2 corners that were rookies last year. So as well, if you're saying he's part of the blame, he also can be, part of the reason why we have a better team as far as a roster standpoint.
That's a great point, Chris. Jamari, like Chris says, this is one of the better defenses in the NFL because of Ryan Poles. How much blame does he deserve for where we are at right now? Is this his doing, or is this Matt Eberflus' stamp all over Jamari?
I agree with Chris. I think as much blame as you can give him credit to. He did build a nice roster. I think that he should have moved on from Matt Eberflus. I think that was one of his flaws. I think hopefully this year he can get the right pick at coach, and I think we should be good going forward.
Yeah, let's hope you're a prophet, my friend. Daniel, how much blame does Ryan Poles deserve for where the Bears are at right now, 4-9 and riding a 7-game losing streak?
Well, I think the two biggest elephants in the room would have to be his lack of building the offensive line and then sticking with Eberflus. I mean,
Yeah.
And then you start hearing more rumors coming out about that he did want to keep Eberflus last year when there was early reports after Eberflus got fired that he didn't want to keep him. So you don't know what to believe. But I
Yeah.
think, like I said, his two biggest Achilles heels have been that lack of building the offensive line and sticking with Eberflus and hiring Shane Waldron.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up, Dan. Let's talk about that because a story breaking today, Coop, that the Tribune's Dan Widower, a scathing story that every Bears fan has to read about where the Bears leadership is at right now, said from his sources that the Colts were ready to fire Eberflus as their defensive coordinator right before Ryan Poles and the Bears hired him right before the 2022 season. Does that news make Ryan's decision not only to hire Matt, but to stay with him through the 13, through the 4-13 first year, the 7-10 season last year, where we were making progress but not getting where we needed to be? Does that bring up fair questions about whether Ryan Poles is the right guy going forward because he just didn't know how to handle the refusal?
Yeah, he hired the wrong coach. So whenever you, and I don't know if it's. Listen, it's the rumors out. There's all rumors and stories out there, but at the end of the day, when you hire the wrong coach, when you're going through a rebuild, you gotta keep that in mind too. He took everything down, which he did the right job of doing that. But when you're doing a full out rebuild, and then you're trying to build on, and you got the wrong coach in place, look where we're at in year number 3 right here. We're on a 7-game, 8-game. I keep losing track every week. It's a 7-game losing streak right now. We've had a lot of them. So, and I'll tell you this too. Remember that too. If you remember, if those reports are true, remember that last year in Indianapolis. Remember the Colts? They went out that year. They lost that last game that knocked them out of the playoffs to a really bad Jackson. I remember that because that's how the Steelers got. My girlfriend, Steeler fan here. That's how the Steelers got into the playoffs. And Colts fans were livid. They're like, "How the hell did we lose this game?" And they were knocked out. And people were really, really upset about that. So you put all that together, and all that stuff comes true. It's like, well, here we are 3 years later, and we're riding a losing streak.
Yeah, and that was my biggest concern about when Matt Eberflus was initially hired back in 2022. We know that Bill Polian, who a Hall of Fame playoff person, NFL personnel man, built championship teams in Indianapolis. He was recommending that Ryan Poles go with Jim Caldwell. That was the guy I wanted. But then, when he makes the decision to go with Matt Eberflus, and Matt Eberflus has that defensive letdown. I think you're right. I think they gave up 40 plus points in that final game of the season to keep them out of the playoffs. That's when my questions first came in, Chris. But let's talk about this a little bit. We were talking in the pregame about exactly when Matt Eberflus lost this locker room. It really came to fruition, obviously, after the timeout that was never called again in the Detroit loss. But from your perspective, Chris, when did Eberflus lose this locker room, and what has been Ryan Poles' biggest mistake as a general manager this season?
The biggest mistake was hanging on to Eberflus for too long, and he clearly lost the locker room at the end of the game because he didn't save the quarterback from himself.
Yeah.
You have a rookie quarterback, and he is less than a minute and a half left, and you're trying to make a drive, and he gets sacked. You do not let him destroy his own self in that situation. Call the timeout, get everybody together, and then call a play that leads to success. He didn't do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jamari, I want to get your thoughts on this. I really think that Eberflus lost this team a week earlier in the Green Bay game. When his play calling, he puts the Bears in such a tough situation, and then he doesn't know what to do, what he's going to do with Cairo Santos. And for you, when did he lose this team from your perspective?
For what I've seen, I think it was after that after the Hail Mary play.
Yeah.
Because then after that, you see that, like, with situational wise, the next week when we played the Cardinals, they give up that big touchdown in the run. So I think that Eberflus lost the locker room after that Washington game.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but now what the question now becomes, what does Ryan Poles have to do not to lose the faith of Bears ownership or team president Kevin Warren? Now, Daniel, Kevin doubled down on his support of Poles as his GM last week. He stated specifically that Ryan will be the chief talent scout for the Bears' next head coach. Now, Daniel, this is a question that has the skeptical Chicago media now asking: is Poles still the right guy, not only to lead this team forward, but being the guy who picks the Bears' next head coach? Dan Widower of the Tribune, in a scathing piece today, friends, you've got to read that again, asked, why does Poles get to save his job? Ryan Poles is in line to hire another Bears coach, but should he? Yes or no, from your perspective, Dano, should Ryan Poles be leading the Bears forward for their next head coaching position?
Going into this season, there was probably no bigger fan of Ryan Poles than myself. I love the guy. I thought he was making all the right moves. He had a couple bad moves, but what GM doesn't? You know what I mean? They all make bad moves. They're never going to be perfect. Um, I'm starting to have my doubts when I look back to see at some of the moves he's made and some of the the depth, like go back to the offensive line and the way he's built this team. But that being said, I think he does deserve one more hire. I mean, most GMs they do get at least two hires, so you got to give him one more hire. But at the same time, what's he got? Does he got 1 year left on his contract, Coles? So it's like the Bears never line up their quarterbacks, coaches, and GMs to perfectly align. They always find a way to screw it up, and this is no different.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, this is a movie we've seen so many times before. Football, especially Bears football, Coop, is built on faith for a better tomorrow. Whether that faith is built on solid ground or quicksand, and the Bears roster now, from franchise QB and training Caleb Williams all the way down, still believes in RP. Caleb said this week, listen to this, fellas, the amount that he cares about us, the Chicago Bears, and wanting to win is why my faith in him is so strong and believing in him to make sure that we are getting it right. He believes they're going to get it right under Ryan Poles. From your vantage point, where's the Bears' undaunted faith in their general manager built on? Why from Caleb all the way to the last man on the practice squad? Why does this team believe that the Brian Poles is the best man to lead them forward, Coop?
I think it is the way he comes across, and I think he's
Yeah.
done a lot of really good things with this team. He's built up, and he's hit on some free agents, and he's hit on some draft picks. Obviously, he missed on the coach, and he's missed on some other things. But we can make that argument with a lot of other GMs in the league on what they've missed on at the same time. But Ryan Poles also was that football player. He was that football player that tried to make it in the NFL. He was on the practice squad. So I think when you have a guy like him, he can relate a little bit more different. Kind of like when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with different head coaches around the league that were former players, how they, I feel like, can relate a little bit different with some of the players. I think he can do that. And he kind of speaks to what the players are going through. And I think a lot of players see that. And I think that's why they can feel like he can lead them the
Yeah.
way to building a
Yeah,
successful.
very solid point, Coop. Chris, kind of backing off what Coop says. Ryan Poles is always a guy who owns his hits, he owns his misses, his successes and failures. And we were talking in the pregame about, if you look at his biggest miss, is obviously, you brought up a great point. It was the Chase Claypool trade to giving up a second round pick. But do you think a reason why that he gets so much respect, not just in that locker room, but I think around the league, is this is a man who walks his own walk. This is a guy who has a swagger. This is a guy who truly believes in his vision. And we haven't seen it come true yet, but this is a man who is so passionate about trying to build this team back to NFL relevancy. Do you think that resonates with his team? Why does this team love this guy so much?
Well, back to what Coop said, he also said that he could relate.
Yeah,
There's also reports saying like there's players that he has conversations with, checks with them, seeing if they're okay. And when you're a player and you have someone in the executive like this the front office saying, "Hey, how you doing today? Are you feeling good? Like, what I'm saying, is everything good with you and the family?" You relate more to that guy. You're willing to run through a brick wall just so that guy to be successful.
yeah. Jamar, that's a great point that what Chris brings up, because Ryan Poles is a personal guy. I think the biggest problem that Big Nation has, Jamari, is we never see the McCaskies. We know they do great stuff, charity wise behind the scenes, but we never see them connecting with the team, and more importantly, Bears Nation. Ryan Poles connects with his team, and is that why he is so beloved in that locker room?
I think so. Like Chris and Coop said, like he makes you want to run through a brick wall for
Yeah.
him. He just has to get that coach in there. He filled the team up from really nothing. Like we had nothing when he first got here. He built them up to being a respectable team. We just got to get that right guy in here. That's all, and I think he'll do it. We heard stories from when he first got there that he's up like early in the morning to get to work. He's like one of the last to leave the building. So I think during his coaching search, I think he'll get it right.
Yeah, and, not that's the thing about it too. Nobody's working hard as much as as Bears Nation, as we believe this team. Nobody believes it more than Ryan Poles. And Thomas Brown is getting there. But I think RP more than anybody else, no one's losing more sleep than him about trying to turn this team around. Daniel, if I could get your thoughts, for you personally, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your current faith level in Ryan Poles?
Say about a 7.
Hmm.
7.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, he is. I mean, it's the the team is better than its record. I think. I mean, if you think of, they should have 4 more wins than they have. Really, if it wasn't for some terrible coaching blunders, the team should be a lot better. So, as far as the team he's built, like I said, I don't like what he's done with the offensive line. I don't know how anybody can. And I mean, from coming from a guy who was an offensive lineman, I don't know how you could be so terrible at scouting and drafting offensive linemen.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I
Obviously, we
mean,
know what his priorities got to be in the offseason. Coop, let's piggyback off what Daniel said. It's not like we've been blown out. The Bears under Ryan Poles have played 24 one-score games. So as Daniel says, with competent coaching, this team should definitely be. I mean, we're talking a 4-9 team. This team should probably be. You can make a case this team should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 8-5 if
yeah.
if competent coaching. But Coop, let's talk about Bears Nation. You talk to him every day. I talk to him every day. What are the reasons that Bears fans should keep their faith in Ryan Poles?
Well, I guess you got to look at that. I would think for some of his draft, it's difficult. Listen, when you hit on like we talked about earlier, when you miss on a coach like the way they have, and they've missed on coaches over the last couple of years, not just under his regime, but like under other regimes too, it's very difficult to get that confidence that we're going to get the next one right. But he also made that trade with the Panthers too, where we moved down and got Caleb Williams and their number 1 pick. And I thought that was one of the best trades that you can see any franchise make, just
Yeah.
in any sport. The way he was able to do that and the way he was able to manipulate that. And then you kind of look back a little bit more on how he's rebuilt this team. I like the way he's done it outside of the offensive line, to what Dana was saying. Yeah, there's some issues there, some issues on the defensive line. But like, this is going to be Ryan Poles going back this year is going to be a massive offseason, because not only you got to get the coach right, but I think there's a lot more pieces that I think that he's going to have to fill than I probably would have thought going into a year 3. Instead, we're going into a year 4 on a possible losing streak. And now we're going to have to start looking at other players, like, for example, like maybe a safety position where we don't know what's going to happen with Jaquan Brisker. Is like there's going to be a lot more that I think he's going to have to do than I thought he was going to have to in the beginning of the season.
Can I just piggyback real quick off of what
Yeah.
Matt was saying about the defense? If the Bears do go for a Mike Vrabel, right?
Yeah.
He may come in and want to switch it to from the 4-3 to the 3-4. So then you're talking about having to make a lot more changes on the
Yeah.
defense.
Great point, Daniel. Absolutely. I mean, you would think though, Chris, like Daniel says, that's a huge adjustment. You have to reevaluate everybody on your defense to see if they can make that adjustment and if their skill sets fits into that. Can you talk about it for your perspective, Chris? What should be the number 1 required qualification that Ryan Poles has at the very top of his list when he's selecting the Bears' next head coach this offseason?
It's more of a continuity, like how everything gels together.
Yeah.
So when you look at this current roster now, you have to pick a head coach that even when he brings his scheme in, you don't have to totally rebuild this roster from scratch. Because if you have to rebuild this roster from scratch, you talk about another 2-3 years possibly. So just basically get the head coach that can get the best out of these players with his scheme and propel this team to success.
Yeah. It's interesting, Jamari. You look at with the Bears seem like they keep switching. When we go, we go with defensive oriented coordinators. In previous head coaching positions or searches, sometimes it works. Lovie Smith, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, John Fox and Matt Eberflus there. Should they be going defensive minded? Should that be the type of guy that he's looking for? Jamari, or do you think right now with the way this team's kind of going forward offensively and we're trying to get Caleb to that next level, should he be looking in for an offensive mind first in this search?
I think they just need to get the guy that's gonna be the best leader of the team. Like, just get the best guy available. I mean, I understand that if we do get an offensive guy, you'll have more continuity with the offense. But this team definitely needs somebody that's gonna be like a glue for the team. Be able to get the best out of these guys, and is gonna like Chris said, we need a scheme. Basically, we need an identity. Somebody that's gonna build an identity. And in my opinion, I don't think it has to be specifically an offense or defensive type of person. Just bringing that guy, the guy that's gonna be the best fit for this team. Somebody that's gonna fit Chicago.
Hmm. If you had Daniel right now, if based on who's not available, who we know Ryan Poles is interested in right now, if you had a front runner of who might be the most likely choice for the Bears next year, is your gut telling you Mike Vrabel?
My gut is saying that they're probably he's probably their number one target, but without a question, my pick would be Ben Johnson, and it's not even a close second to anybody else because
Yeah.
this team is going to go as Caleb Williams goes.
Mhm.
And if you look at the modern day NFL, most of the teams that are perennially, sorry if I could spit that out, in the playoffs, in the championship run, are teams with franchise quarterbacks and offensive minded head coaches.
Yeah.
My
Chris, I'll
opinion.
get your thoughts on that. Right now, what does your gut tell you who is the right fit for this team on December
Yeah,
12th, 2024?
to be honest, I can see Mike Vrabel being the head coach of the Bears.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy part. When you look at his resume when he was in Tennessee, what was the thing that always evaded him? It was having that quarterback just to take away from defenses, well, defensive stack in the box against Derrick Henry. So
Yeah.
if Caleb blossoms into that quarterback, now you don't really need to have that offensive guru like that unless he's a coordinator.
Yeah.
So it just balance. Just keep it balanced. And I think Mike Vrabel knows how to do that.
I
Mhm.
just have to see who his OC is first. That's all. I mean, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
against it, but I'd have to see who his OC is.
Mhm.
and
Uh,
offensive line coach.
yeah. Offensive line coach,
And wide
OC,
receivers coach.
without question. Hey guys, here's a thought in terms of OC. I'm just throwing this out there. Here's a guy who's going to be looking for a job in about 30 days. Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson, you got to think his time's run out in Jacksonville to no thought of his own. I mean, they haven't put together all the pieces for him. But Peterson's a guy I think you look at what the work he's done with literally every quarterback he's worked with that might work out as an OC under Mike Vrabel if the Bears go that defensive route. All right, fellas, but let's talk about the here and the now because as we mentioned, we're on a 7-game losing skid that is absolutely barbecuing, sauteing, deep frying, and absolutely annihilating our Bears right now. We got to end this thing. Let's talk about coming Monday. This Monday night showdown with the playoff bound Vikings at US Bank Stadium. Vikings come in a clear 7-point favorite. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, both closing in on 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Sam Darnold continuing to do the most unlikely pitch perfect Joe Montana impression we have seen in years. Fellas, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your faith level in the Bears' ability to end this savage 7-game losing streak against the Vikings on Monday? Let's start with you, Chris.
I say a six because last time they went to overtime.
Yeah.
And the way Coach Brown called his offensive game plan, it handicapped Brian Flores from using blitzes to overwhelm the quarterback. He made them defend the whole field defensively. And if you do that against a Brian Flores, you make him pay heavily for blitzing.
Yeah,
So
that's true. The Vikings defense had one of their worst games of the season, Jamari. Does that give you hope that the Bears could pull this one out on Monday?
Well, I'm gonna say we have a 50-50 chance. They're gonna make adjustments. Hopefully, we're gonna make adjustments too. Um, so yeah, I think the X factor of this game is gonna be how the defense react because when we went into overtime, they couldn't get off the field. Even in like later in that game, they couldn't get off the field. So our defense is definitely gonna be the X factor. I think the offense is still gonna play well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there, Jamari. It's going to be all defense in terms of whether we get out of there with the W. Daniel, what's going to be the X factor that determines Monday's game? And also, Daniel, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level that we can pull off the upset?
-5. No. I don't know if it's just my Bears PTSD kicking in from the season, but I don't have very much confidence in them winning another game the rest of the year, to be honest with you. But I think the X factor of the game is just again how Caleb picks up the blitz, which he did a real good job last game. So it does give me a little bit of faith. So I'd say, and honestly, probably about a 4 would be
Or
my
yeah,
factor.
you're saying there's a chance, Daniel. We've been five, -5 confidence level. Matt Cooper, what say you for, Monday night? What's your confidence level that this long Chicago losing nightmare can finally end?
Oh, about a 3, 4, maybe around
Yeah.
there. First off, I keep picking the Bears to win over the last 6 weeks. I picked up 4 times and I've lost every time on the show. So let's start with that. But here's what I'm a little worried about on Monday night is you got great coaching on the Vikings with Flores
Oh
and
gosh,
Kevin
you got the
O'Connell
NFL Coach of the Year in
going up
my opinion.
against
Yeah.
Washington and Thomas Brown, which I do think they're going to be a better in. I would hope they're going to be calling a better game. But a second time around with those two guys in charge, I think is going to be very difficult to win in Minnesota. Sam Darnold would throw 5 touchdown passes last week. He looked pretty good against us, too. He looked really good against us. And I think he's looked good the last couple of weeks. And it's just, I have a hard time trying to think that the Bears can go up there and win. I hope they do. I really do. I'm going to be watching that game, hoping to just get a damn win here before the season's over with. But I just don't have my confidence level set that high.
Yeah.
It's also a Monday night too, so they got that going against them.
Oh, yeah, that can't help us either.
Yeah, Monday night. We are not exactly primetime players historically when it comes to Monday nights. That is for sure, friend. Well, guys, I tell you what, thank you so much, friends, for joining us on the Voice of the Chicago Sports Fan. You have been watching Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Be sure to hit that like button on YouTube. Give yourself the gift of great sports podcasting all year long by hitting that like button that will get you all of our over 300 shows a year. We have done over 300 shows a year, and we are just getting started. So much great stuff coming to you, friends, over the holidays. Be sure to check in with us both Monday night and every night next week as we'll be breaking down the Bears-Vikings game. Again, that's Monday Night Football, 7:15 kickoff. We cannot wait to see you next week and beyond. We hope you and your family continue to have a great holiday season, friends. And don't forget, we are here because of the best sponsorship team in all the sports podcasting, TC's World of Wonders, ladies and gentlemen. It's one place to stop for all of your holiday sports memorabilia needs. That is TC'sWorldOfWonders.com. Also, Chris Chelios' El Bandino Yankee, where tequila heaven is yours at ElBandinoYankee.com. Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, Bridges Scoreboard, your Northwest Indiana Chicago sports headquarters with the Hall of Fame menu, Key City Riding, the Worst Stadium Club, and also our good friends at River Street Tavern. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Cleet Super Campbell for the greatest team in podcasting, the Chris Light James Brown, the coolest kid in all of New York City, Jamari Riddick, our boy Daniel Blakes, and the great American DJ Matt Cooper. Friends, you have yourselves a great weekend. Stay safe out there, friends, and keep living your lives like Hall of Famer Steve Mongo McMichael with everything you've got. We'll see you next time, friends, on Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse.